Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good day to you. Welcome to Bayou Sports Talk here down in the Bayou of Louisiana. We have a great show for you today. And I'm your moderator, Kay, and we just have a great panel to discuss these great topics. So let's start with Coach. Coach, holla at him.
No, let's start on Raymond this time first. Come on, Raymond, you give it to him.
All right, what's up, y'all? We about to give y'all these good topics. Thank y'all for tuning in. We appreciate y'all. Every week we go live and y'all tune into our conversations and our topics that we discuss. We got some wonderful topics to talk about today. Of course, I'm the youngest of the bunch, Raymond. Here to give y'all my input and my knowledge on some of the sports and topics that we're gonna discuss. I hope y'all enjoy the conversation. Like, subscribe, and don't be afraid to comment in the chat.
All right, thanks, Ray. Now talk to him, Coach.
It's me, Coach 67 Sports TV. Shout out to the awesome and amazing LDBC, Lions Den Boxing community. Shout out to the greatest university in the world, the Southern University, home of the mighty Jaguars. We appreciate everybody that's been rocking with us since day one. We appreciate all the new people that's been tuning into the show. We appreciate everybody that's gonna stop in. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And we're gonna take y'all on the ride.
All right, guys, and of course, everyone sees we are missing one, waiting for him. We're representing Rue Dog. So, okay, guys, let's just go ahead and dive in. Let's start with the fight that we just recently saw: Spence versus Crawford. Ray, why don't you start us off this week? Tell us what you think.
Man, what do I think? Bruh, I always thought I thought Terrence Crawford had 7 kids, but watching that fight, it appeared to me he had 8. Bruh, that was a Errol Spencer. That was gonna be this fight was gonna be a one-sided butt whooping, but I didn't think he was talking about himself. Me, I was going for Errol Spence, and I'm currently in the DFW area, so Errol Spencer from Dallas. And the place where I was watching the fight, you already know everybody was, rooting for Errol Spence, and you just could hear the sports ball just quiet. When Terrence Crawford won, everybody was like, yeah, because everybody know both of them dogs. But man, I didn't mind Errol Spence losing. It's just the way he lost. And I'm like, don't get me wrong, dude got guts. He got heart. And he stayed up in there. He fought like a true gladiator. But man, he only won one round and that was the first round. And I don't know what it is. It's like I do want to see them rematch. Not that I think Errol Spence could win. He could win. He could not win. It's just, man, you got to perform better than that, bro. I just did not like that performance. He said his timing was off. I think it got to be something progressing with the dementia that some people are speculating that he have. You know what I'm saying? It's like with his slurred speech, like just do, he be looking high. We know he not high. Well, he do like the club, and I think he does. Like he spawned. I seen him post a picture with like a weed company or like a CBD company or something like that. So I don't know if he really into smoking weed and CBD and stuff like that or what. But it's like, man, that I was kind of heartbroken to see him go out like that. Then I got hit with a double whammy. I know we talking about Errol and Spence, but I kind of want to throw the UFC in there too. It had another big UFC fight that night, and it had a guy named Dustin Poirier, who from Lafayette, Louisiana, fighting against Justin Gaethje, who's a monster from Colorado. Both of these guys are like very violent fighters. I love both of them, but I was rooting for Dustin, and my guy lost by the head kick knockout. So man, both of the people I was going for that night lost to a knockout, bro. I just went home and went straight to sleep. I'm like, I'm gonna watch fighting. I'm like, oh, I'm tired of this, bro. So
Maybe you was heartbroken now.
heartbroken. Then the funny thing is, my mama told me earlier that day, and this kept coming to my head. I was talking to my mom on the phone earlier that day, and she was like, "Oh, you gonna watch the fight?" So I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "I hope everybody you root for win." That obviously did not happen. So I'm driving home and watching the fights. I just hear my mama saying, "I hope everybody you root for win," knowing that they did not win, bro.
Okay. Yeah, because that was a headbanger. So, Coach, tell me what your thoughts.
Yeah, like Rama said, in the build up leading up to the fight, Errol Spence Jr., he said it was going to be a one-sided butt whooping. However, he did not say he was going to be on the receiving end of that one-sided butt whooping. Now, a few things I kind of, want to point out. I made a few notes. First of all, a lot of people been floating around with this guy that says he's a neurologist. His input in terms of his evaluation of Errol Spence Jr. First and foremost, he articulated like real well, so he does sound like a doctor. However, he never stated his name and he never like verified his credentials. He's just saying that, hey, I'm a neurologist, so on and so forth. However, like a couple of brothers in the LDBC, 7A Sports TV and Blue Blood Sports TV, they both had like doctors on their respective shows. And essentially, those two doctors debunked everything he said in that video that's kind of been going viral, that went viral. And, basically they were saying that, he didn't have access to a CT scan or any type of brand scan for Spence. And in addition to that, like you just can't sit on your couch and diagnose this man from your home. Now, I know he's a fight fan, but we can't verify his credentials over the phone. So whatever YouTube channel he was on, it's like, we only have to take that with a grain of salt. And in addition to that, I mean, I know he's been in, people just, are aware of the one car accident. They pointed this out on Queens of the Ring last night. People are aware of the one car accident that he had where he was thrown out of his Ferrari. However, within like a 2-year period, he had like 2 major car accidents. The other one, he was in a bulletproof vehicle and a 14-year-old hit his vehicle and like tore up the front of his car or whatever the case may be. So, yeah, I'm aware that he was in a couple major accidents. But even with that being said, he's not going to see the type of doctor that the three of us would see. Like, from a financial standpoint, he's on a whole nother level. And, people don't realize from a financial standpoint, if you just look at the fight he had with Mikey, like he got a bag in that fight. And, from a financial standpoint, he's been well off for a while. So I don't think he's just doing it for the money. And I don't think his doctors would sign off on him, fighting if he wasn't physically fit, able, and capable to fight. So this whole, dementia, they think he's having progressive, like, issues from a mental standpoint in terms of the aftermath of those car accidents. I don't think that's the case. Now, what I do think is feasible, if people talking about him being high and tired, that's not the case either. However, I think it was the fact that he was weight drained. He's been at 147 a long time, and he's been struggling to make weight. So, I mean, just think about it. Usually, I've watched so many boxing matches over the years, and usually when you see a fighter, like prior to the fight, they getting a little pad work in, they have the trainer with the mitts and they work in the mitts and this, that, and the third. But he was just sitting down, whereas Crawford was warming up. That was the thing I found strange, is like even stranger than him coming into the building and just kind of looking like sleepy and drowsy. He has a tendency to look that way. He kind of reminds me of Brandon Ingram from the Pelicans in that regard. Even when Ingram was with the Lakers, they would always have pictures of him like his eyes being droopy and he looking high. And I'm like, no, that's just his demeanor. And I think Errol Spence Jr., his demeanor is the same way. But I think it's the fact that the thing that I just kind of found strange is the fact that, they show, footage of each fighter in their respective locker room, and Spencer just sitting there like just relaxing, because they say he was saying that he was conserving energy, whereas Bud on the pad, he on the mitts, like he on the mitts getting mitt work, getting everything straight. And I'm like, that's the thing that I found real strange.
Could I
So,
jump in real quick?
Yeah, you can jump in.
Yeah, that's something. I'm glad you said that, because I did notice that watching like when I believe it was what's those two fighters, the little short one, I think his name Cruz.
No, you talking about Eastside Cruz.
Yeah, Cruz and who he boxed against.
I can't remember the guy's name, but I know you're talking about.
But
You talking about the fight before the main event.
Right, the co-main event. When
Co-main event, yeah.
Boxing, and they showed Spence and Crawford both like in the locker room. I did notice that, and I was like, maybe they just so happened put the camera on Spence after he finished, like, warming up. But I did find that fun. I'm like, why isn't this dude warming up? Like why he just chilling? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I mean, it was obvious that Bud worked up a sweat and was working up a sweat, and it just seemed like EJ was just trying to conserve energy. I mean, he was just like sitting there, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, this is the biggest fight of your life, and you just sit, just chilling. You know what I'm saying? And I found that strange. And in addition to that, people talked about the stack wraps. I'm not even addressing that because the Nevada State Athletic Commission allows that. If people don't know what stacking the wraps is, it's like usually what you would do is you would put like the stuff you put inside, the padding first, and then you would wrap your hands. However, the thing that was prevalent, that was a major issue leading up to the Cool Boy Steph and Monster Inouye fight, was the fact that Monster Inouye was stacking and double stacking, meaning he would put tape on his hands, and then he would put the padding in, and then he would put tape on top of that. That's legal in Japan, but in terms of you can't double stack, but stacking is allowed in Vegas. So I'm not even addressing the stacking aspect of it, but it's the fact that he just looked tired leading into the fight. I mean, even his ring walk, he really didn't have like any real energy at all. It's like he just looked lethargic, and I just kind of found that just strange. So I think he might have been weight drained, like seriously weight drained. And another thing people point out, his fighter that's on his promotional company, his fighter, Frank Martin, he fought in Vegas. And Derrick James, who's the trainer for Jamel Charlo and for Errol Spence Jr., he trains Frank Martin also. And he had to, Spence had to break camp and go to Vegas 3 weeks early because Derrick James is his trainer also. So that's something that's kind of out of the ordinary in terms of a fighter breaking camp and going to the fight location like a few weeks prior to the fight. Usually, once you finish camp, then you go to the fight, like maybe that Wednesday, that Thursday, leading up to the weigh-in or whatever the case may be. So, that might have had a small impact. But one thing that a lot of brothers have been pointing out is people don't realize that he had this strength conditioning coach named Blue Ray with him. And when he had Blue Ray as his strength conditioning coach, he was undefeated. Like that fight against Kell Brook, like all of those fights, like he was knocking everybody that he fought out. And after a certain point, I don't know what, I'm not going to speculate, but it was saying that Derrick James didn't want him like doing the strength training that Blue Ray had him doing. And, whether it was weight training or whatever the case may be. So, a lot of people in the LDBC has been saying that, hey, he needs to go get Blue Ray back as a strength conditioning coach because even like when he fought Sean Porter, he was in the club a lot. He was drinking a lot from what I'm understanding. And in addition to that, he wasn't with Blue Ray anymore. But when he had Blue Ray as his strength and conditioning coach, everybody he fought, he was knocking out. I mean, Kell Brook, everybody in that line of fighters he was fighting, he was knocking everybody out. So many individuals are speculating that he need to go get Blue Ray again as his strength and conditioning coach. And whatever issues that they had, whatever differences, whatever the case may be, they need to just resolve that. And he need to get back with Blue Ray because the nutritionist is fine. That allowed him to continue to make weight. But from a strength conditioning standpoint, his mindset is still aggressive. But in terms of his physical strength, he doesn't have the same strength that he once had when he had Blu-ray as his strength conditioning coach. And, one other thing people have been pointing out is the fact that his trainer, Derek James, when him and Jamel Charlo was at the top of their game, he was only training those two fighters. But the fact that he has Frank Martin as his fighter on his promotional company, man down, he has Frank Martin, so that's another fighter. But not so much just those three, but the fact that he added heavyweight, former unified champion Anthony Joshua, and the fact that he added Ryan Garcia as fighters in his stable of fighters that he trained, it's taken away a lot of individualized attention that he once gave Charlo and Spence, to focus on just them solely. And he's divided his attention. But more than anything, a lot of brothers in the sisters in LDBC have been saying that Anthony Joshua and Ryan Garcia, they've brought a lot of negative energy, a lot of negative vibes because they're losers, And I know it might be hard for some individuals to say, but just think about it. These guys, they were both unified champions and they were undefeated. And, you add Joshua into your camp, and all of a sudden, Charlo has a poor performance against Brian Castano, and he has to, knock him out in a rematch. And in addition to that, Spence, he looked the worst of his entire career. So, a lot of people been saying that Joshua and Ryan Garcia brought a lot of bad juju and a lot of bad energy into the camp because they losers, So that's one thing a lot of people have been pointing out. But, this is the thing I really want to point out more than anything. People talking about the tune-up. When he had the car accident, he didn't have a tune-up. He had the horrific accident where he was thrown out the Ferrari. Then he fought against Danny Garcia, and he just smashed Danny Garcia. And after the fact, he had to detach a retina because people don't realize instead of Udanis Ugas fighting against Manny Pacquiao, it was supposed to be Spence, but he had to detach a retina. Ugas was going to be on the undercard, so they moved him up to the main event, and that's how he ended up beating Pacquiao. And he was out for several months for that fight, and he smashed Ugas too. So the tune-up thing, maybe he could do that against Garcia and Ugas, but somebody on Bud's level, he probably couldn't get away with that. And in addition to that, they were saying that's part of the reason why Bud walked away from the negotiating table and he went and fought David Avanesyan, because he was able to get that tune-up, prior to the two of them fighting. And Spence, he don't believe in tune-ups. But when you fighting a fight of this magnitude, maybe it's better that you go get a tune-up, you know what I'm saying? And, a lot of people was talking about him potentially overtraining, the fact that he was weight drained, that he's been on a party. All of those things are things that they pointed out. But I think more than anything, I think he was weight drained. But, one last point, because I know I could be a bit long-winded, but the thing that I don't know if y'all noticed during the course of the fight, I'll probably say for round 4 on to the rest of the fight, Bud, everything Bud was hitting EJ with, he was hurting him badly. And, Spence, he usually hitting fighters and he could punch. People talk about his punching power. And, at one point during the second round, because, Raymond said he scored the first round for Spence, I scored it a 10-10 round because to me it was about even. But in that second round, when he hurt him, at one point Bud said EJ landed a clean punch and he landed it flush. And he said he was thinking this is all he has in terms of his punching power. So after that point, he just was walking through him the rest of the fight. But I don't know if y'all noticed, it was real prevalent in the 7th and the 8th round. Bud really held back on Spence. Really, I think he carried him probably about 4 rounds. If he would have stepped on the gas maybe in about the 4th round, he could have got him out in the 4th round. And it was clearly, blatantly obvious in the 7th and the 8th round had Bud just turned up, because that's one thing about him. If you look at some of his fights, once he gets his opponent hurt, he just ends the fight and he just goes all in, and he didn't do that in this fight. So to me, it kind of feels like he held back on him. He knew something was wrong, and instead of him just going all in for the kill, it's like he just kind of held back on him, and he kind of took pity on him, and it seemed like they've got like grown a bond in a relationship, over the course of the leading up to this fight. But I really kind of felt like he just kind of held back on him. If he'd have been done like he done against Juniors and Dalgo and just kind of waited in for him, Spence was hurt, but I think he could have really hurt him real bad had he just went in. I'm glad he taken a First of all, I'm glad the fight is over, because it seemed like, especially like the Crawford fans, it's like they just want to argue more than anything, as opposed to just seeing who the better fighter was. I'm kind of glad we put that to rest, but I really want to see the rematch to see if Bud is just that much better than him and there's no adjustments he could make, or was something really wrong with Spence that night, because to me, more than anything, it just kind of looked like he was weight drained,
When you think the rematch should occur, you think they should do it like in December, like I heard, or they should wait like a long?
I mean, from all accounts I'm getting, they say, it's gonna happen in December.
Well, guys, to be truthfully honest with you, in my opinion, I am scared for Spence. To be truthfully honest.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a valid point. I mean, I'm not necessarily worried about. Well, first of all, shout out to the brothers Jared O'Levin Green and Brandon Brazil. We appreciate y'all for rocking with us and tuning in. But my assessment of it, people talking about like the two car accidents he had, within like a certain time frame, especially him being thrown from the Ferrari. To me, that's not like my focus. The focus for me is people don't realize he took a lot of punishment in this fight. So I think that's the thing.
Coach, you hit it. That's what I was talking about. The hits that were coming at him, and he just, like you said, he didn't look like himself, as well as, what if there really is something wrong with him, what could really happen to him mentally, if those punches keep coming at him, if he doesn't address it sooner than later.
Well, kind of like Raymond was saying, they're going to have the rematch in December. But I think that's the reason why both of them have been having trouble making that welterweight limit. People don't realize. And I think that's the reason why Spence kept saying, hey, let's run it back, but let's do it at 154. Because he knows, like, he's, real weight drain making welterweight. And, some of these things that people have been bringing up, it's not excuses. We giving Bud his flaws. We saying that from in terms of being pound for pound. I don't care what nobody say about Inouye. I'm not taking anything away from Inouye. Bud is the clear-cut #1 pound for pound best fighter in the sport of boxing today. And in addition to that, he's kind of made it clear with this performance again last Saturday is that he's the best fighter of this era, from a pound for pound standpoint. And it's not even close. So I think that's the thing. But in terms of, running it back, I think that we'll see, how weight drained he really was, or is the fact that, whether it was the fact that something was like really off with him that night, or the fact that Bud is that much better than him and there's no adjustments he really could make. So that's why I want to see the rematch in December to see, what it really was, because initially I was like looking at the fight, in terms of Bud's counter-punching ability, his hand speed, his power. It's like he had every advantage over Spence. But that wasn't the Errol Spence Jr. I'm accustomed to seeing,
Okay. So let's move on, guys. And like Coach said, shout out to our guys who are watching. Thank you for tuning in. Let's move on to Southern University predictions. Coach, tell us what you think.
All right. Well, today was Fan Fest Day, and I've been going on, so I didn't have a chance to go. And it's been pretty hot lately too. So I think that's the reason why they had it so early in the morning. I think it was like 9:00 this morning. They had like a little scrimmage, in a squad scrimmage or practice or whatever the case may be. But more than anything, I think Southern is predicted to win the SWAC West. I think they're going to win the SWAC West. But the thing about it is, in the East, from a clear cut standpoint, it's clear cut that FAMU and J State, barring injuries, they're the two best team in the East. So outside of them against each other, there's no real competition on the East side. I mean, Alabama State really could push the two of them, but I think it's a 2 to 3 team race on the East side. But in the West, it's wide open, and Southern is the front runner to win the West, but the West is from top to bottom. It's the tougher division because you have Southern, you have Alcorn State, you have Texas Southern with Andrew Body, you have Prairie View. Prairie View is like finished to come in like fifth, and they could potentially win the West. So the West is wide open, but I think Southern is going to win the West, even though they have some question marks because Harold Blood is going to be the starting quarterback more than likely. It's his job to lose at this point. And then in addition to that, Gerard Sims, who's going to be the starting running back, he's academically ineligible. He's no longer with the team. And in addition to that, Carl Igon, one of the backup running backs, he's injured or whatever the case may be before. And I'm understanding like both of these individuals are no longer with the team. Coach Dooley kind of kept the door open for them to return at some point, but they won't be playing. So that was the reason why Coach Dooley, he pushed for CJ coming from running back coming from Grambling. In addition to that, Quarles, who made all SWAC a couple years ago at Alabama A&M, he's in the fold too. More than likely, Kobe Dillon is going to be the starting running back, but the problem with him is he's extremely injury prone. So, you're probably going to have Dillon and Quarles and Kendrick Grimes. Those probably going to be the top 3 backs. So they have a lot of depth at the running back position. But more than anything, I think they're going to win the West. I think if they get it clicking on all cylinders and rolling at the right time of year, I think they're going to roll into the SWAC championship game. I think they're going to win the SWAC, and I think they're going to go into the Celebration Bowl and hopefully potentially win. But, it kind of remains to be seen. Hopefully they progressively, as the season goes along, to get better and better, and they just, get better at the right time of year and, just win the whole thing, hopefully. But in terms of like the fan base of Southern, it's pretty rabid. And I think at this point, it's pretty much SWAC championship or bust at this point,
All right. Is there something you would like to add, Ray?
Go Jags, man. I'm rooting for us to win the West. Personally, I don't keep up with as much as like the transfers and the switching that goes on. But of course, I'm definitely rooting for Southern. Of course, I would love them to win the West. Win the SWAC and go to the Celebration Bowl. So that's just my minor input on that topic.
Yeah, and for all of those that don't know in the chat, all 3 of us graduated from Southern University. Rude Dog is the only non-Southern University graduate, of the panel, and hopefully he can join us later on in the show,
Go Jags. Okay, guys. Let's go ahead to our another school in the state, LSU. LSU's quarterback Jaden Daniels. He's projected to come in second for the Heisman. Why don't you start us off, Ray?
Yeah, definitely. Last year, I don't know if Coach could recall, but last year I was screaming that Jaden Daniels could win the national. He could win the national championship this year and the Heisman, based off the type of play style he played, especially with that game with Alabama. Like he kind of took the game over. He showed me that he could be a leader. Matter of fact, he showed me that in week 1 when LSU was getting stomped by Florida State and Florida State fumbled the ball on the 1-yard line, and LSU drove all the way down the field. Jaden Daniels scored a touchdown. He threw a touchdown, and potentially to go into overtime, and the LSU kicker, got his kick block, and that's how LSU lost that game. But it's just things that I've seen from Jaden Daniels, his speed, his leadership. Of course, like he's not the most accurate passer, but he could whip it. He could throw the ball. He could put it where it needs to be. He has his go-to guys, has chemistry. Look, man, like Kim Mulkey and LSU baseball coach, they both won it in their second year. So he got to keep the streak going. I think he will. It's not like It's not like Brian Kelly is a average coach. He's a very great coach. He's a good coach. So you got a great quarterback with a great coach. With a LSU always got at least a top 10, a top notch defense. So you got a coach, a quarterback, and a defense. It don't get no better than that. So I got Heisman and national championship for him. And just the when you look at the trend of the type of quarterbacks to win the Heisman, they're both mobile and pocket passers. So I've seen that from Jaden Daniels. Of course, he could sit in the pocket and make the passes, but we all know, everybody knows that Jaden Daniels got some will. So I could definitely see him winning a Heisman this year. And I'm trying to think of anybody else who could kind of like compete with him in that. And I don't really see too many other people that really could kind of at some who could really top him in that. Of course, they're gonna have people above him, but personally, in my opinion, I don't think they got too many other players that could top him.
Okay, guys, let's go ahead on and shift to our hometown.
Hold on, Kate. Let me chime in too.
Okay.
Uh, I agree with everything Ramon said. I'm gonna kind of echo his same sentiments. First and foremost, in terms of Jaden Daniels, like I saw him up close and personal. I mean, I'm accustomed to watching him on TV, and you can see that he's an excellent athlete. And like Ramon said, he has like good arm strength. His accuracy can kind of wane at times, but he has a strong arm. I'm hoping that he wins the national. I mean, he wins the Heisman Trophy. I'm hoping they win the national championship. And he's right in terms of having the right quarterback, the right coach, a good defense. LSU has all of those things, but the only thing that could kind of like hamper them, in addition to injuries, is the fact that the SEC is a gauntlet. And in addition to that, gradually they're gonna add in more teams. The Oklahoma, the Texas. So at this point, the SEC is a super conference. And just watching them last year against Southern, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I know Southern played against quarterbacks like Jeremy Musa, and they played against Shador Sanders, and those quarterbacks were good. But in terms of from an athletic standpoint, watching Southern on the field against Jaden Daniels, from an athletic standpoint, he was on a whole nother level. And Southern had speed, but he just ran away from everybody, just ran a touchdown. And after that first touchdown, the game just kind of got out of hand. So I'm just hoping that he can win the Heisman. I'm hoping they can win the national championship, and hopefully we get another celebration of champions where Southern wins the Black National Championship and LSU wins the national championship. It'll be big for the city of Baton Rouge. Oh, and shout out to everybody that's in the chat. Jared 11 Green, Brandon Pasil, our brother David Jackson. Shout out, salute to everybody.
All right, guys, let's shift it to the Saints. Guys, we have so much to talk about with the Saints. We have a lot that has transpired with the Saints. Let's start off, guys, with training camp. Start us off, Coach.
Well, like I tell you all the time, I keep up with the Saints, but I'm just gonna kind of be truthful. I really don't too much care about training camp. I don't care about the preseason. It's kind of necessarily more so a means to an end. And I'm gonna be truthful. Whether it's with Southern, whether it's with the Saints, I'm just ready for this football season to get cranked up. I kind of been, looking at certain things in camp. One like YouTuber I saw, he was talking about how they had tight end Tuesday or something like that. How Jawan Johnson looked good in camp, and Foster Morrow, and this, that, and the third. But more than anything, I'm just ready just to kind of blow through training camp, blow through preseason, and ready to get the regular season cranked up and going, because I'm interested to see what my Jaguars going to do, what my Saints going to do, and I'm just ready for this football season to get going.
Okay, Ray, what are your thoughts about training camp?
I kind of feel the same. I do like preseason because at least I get to watch football. I don't be knowing half of the people who be on the field. Half of them not gonna make the team, and I really don't care about half of them. I just want to see some pigskin. So that's the only reason I watched like the Hall of Fame game Thursday night. But yeah, like I'm ready for him to get into action. The thing I do like about training camp though is that it does build chemistry. So like like the team, I know how important that is for like teammates to be around each other, get familiar with each other. They out in the sun dancing, doing drills and stuff. So I feel like that stuff builds up familiarity with each other. So I feel like it is important for the team, but from an observation standpoint, from like a fan or someone like that, it's not too big. You know what I'm saying? Like you could go to the training camp in person and stuff like that. I remember I did that like a couple of years ago with my family, but that's pretty much it. Ain't too important. It's more for the team and less for us. And I believe that's all I wanted to add about training camp. Yeah.
Okay. Is there something else you would like to add, Coach?
No, no, thank you, boo.
Okay. So guys, let's talk about our let's talk about Cam Jordan, how he has an extension contract. Start us off, Coach.
Yeah, I mean, and I know you're gonna bring up later on. When we talking about the Saints, you're gonna bring up Jimmy Graham and Alvin Kamara. But in terms of Cam Jordan, initially when I saw it, it was pretty late at night, and I saw contract extension, and then like I saw 270.5 million, and I'm like, what? I'm like, did the Saints give him that big a contract extension? And then when I look closely, it said 27.5. I said, okay, now that makes sense. So, I'm gonna be honest with you in terms of from a defensive standpoint, uh, Cam Jordan and Demario Davis, they're the co-captains. They're the two best players on the Saints defense. But in terms of like actual captain, I say it's Cam Jordan because he's even though Demario Davis demonstrates like leadership capabilities and he's an excellent performer on the field. Cam Jordan has been with the Saints the longest. Hopefully, before he hangs it up as a Saint, he can get him a Super Bowl ring. That's what I really want for him. But I'm kind of glad to see that the Saints has kind of rewarded, his loyalty to the organization, his leadership, his play over the years. But I'm gonna be truthful. Gradually over the years, he's kind of declined because at certain points, Trey Hendrickson was performing better than him. At certain point, Marcus Davenport. So that's why it was kind of key that he had players that was alongside him up and down the defensive line, like Trey Hendrickson, like Marcus Davenport, like Shy Tuttle, like David Ayumata. It was important that those guys perform well. All of those guys are no longer with the Saints. So it's going to be imperative that guys like Malcolm Roach step up, that Peyton Turner, like that he eventually turns the corner and becomes what he really needs to be. Brian Breesy. So, hopefully all of those guys can kind of give him the same type of support that Shy Tuttle and David Ayumata and Trey Hendrickson and Marcus Davenport. Hopefully these guys will give him the same kind of support those guys gave him because, Father Time is undefeated and he's kind of gradually like losing the step. So hopefully he could continue to perform at a high level, but more than anything, before he hangs it up as a Saint, he could be rewarded with that Super Bowl ring.
Okay, Ray, what are your thoughts?
I don't think I really seen it when it first came up, but of course I went on the ESPN app one day and I seen it, and it's nothing that's not expected. Cam Jordan has always said he wants to retire as a Saint, and of course we want Cam Jordan to retire as a Saint. So it's like give him the extension. Cam Jordan, from my remembrance, he's not even hurt all that much, so at least he could stay healthy. It's like at the beginning of the season he'll get it going. Then all throughout the middle of the season, he'll just be like average. Then like towards the end of the season, he'll kind of start to pick it up. But of course, he's a leader. Been with the Saints since day one. Like I remember, he was on the 2011 team, 2023. So that go to show you how long he's been with this organization. So he has built a very strong bond and connection with the city of New Orleans, with this organization. So of course, we want him to retire here. And of course, it's not gonna hurt at all to keep Cam Jordan. He just recently made the Pro Bowl, right?
Yeah.
All right, then so it's like he's still making Pro Bowls and stuff like that. Um,
Yes, and he's broken his dad's record as well.
yep. So hey, it would not hurt to keep him at all. And like Coach said, we definitely won't see him leave with the ring. It's a lot of people that I really wanted to see leave the Saints with a ring. I felt like Mark Ingram should have left the Saints with a ring, but he didn't. You know what I'm saying? So at least I feel like Cam Jordan, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, and Marshawn Lattimore, all of them gotta leave the Saints with a ring, bro. And this gotta be the year, bro. I just see it. I could be over exaggerating, but I definitely see it this year, bro.
Okay, guys, so let's talk about Jimmy Graham because I have enjoyed watching Jimmy Graham when he was with the Saints, and I hear everyone talking about Jimmy Graham is not the same Jimmy Graham in from 2009 2011 years in the past. So Ray, start me off. What are you thinking about Jimmy Graham, and do you think that he will bring something that the Saints is missing to the team? What are your thoughts?
Bro, if Jimmy Graham come out there and start playing like the Jimmy Graham from 2011, I'ma pass out. Cause ain't nowhere in the world that's supposed to happen, and that might just speak of how great or how much he fitted into the Saints play calling. But what do I expect? I expect him to be the third string tight end, especially on goal line situations, because that's really when the Saints used him. But your go-to gonna be Foster Moreau and Juwan Johnson. Jimmy Graham was never a blocker when he was here. So whenever the Saints want to run the ball, Jimmy Graham not gonna be in there. And I don't know what kind of real advice you could give to the tight ends about blocking. It's just Jimmy Graham gonna bring his experience, his familiarity with the organization. That's pretty much it. His experience and just be like that veteran in the tight end locker room. Because if you look at it, the tight end room is very young. Taysom Hill not gonna be in there. I don't know what locker room. I mean, I don't know what room Taysom Hill gonna be in. I'm pretty sure he's gonna be in the quarterback room, but he might be in a room of his own. He might pick whatever room he want to go to. He's there at practice, but I'm not expecting too much from Jimmy Graham. When I first seen it, I thought he was just coming back to the Saints to retire, but it seems to me that he wants to play a full year. So we gonna see what he got. I ain't thinking he gonna be trash. I got Jimmy Graham catching 23 passes, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns on the goal line. A little something, but I'm not expecting Jimmy Graham to have 75 catches, 1,100 yards, and like 10 touchdowns. Could it happen? I wouldn't mind, but will it happen? I seriously doubt it. But yeah, that's pretty much what I expect from Jimmy Graham. For him to be that veteran presence and for him to have minimal and little contribution.
And Raymond, and I'm still thinking that maybe he's looking for that camaraderie, that old home feel that he's used to, and maybe that will get him back into the swing of things. Maybe, I hope so. I hope he proves everyone wrong. Coach, what are your thoughts?
I want to add in one thing right quick.
Go
I
ahead.
definitely feel what you're saying. I understand it because when he was with the Saints, everybody loved him. I remember
Yes,
my
I did
mama.
too.
Why every time Jimmy Graham would score, catch a pass, you like Jimmy Graham, Jimmy Graham. Like so, like in Louisiana, Jimmy Graham was a household name. Everybody knew Jimmy Graham, and everybody knew Darren Sproles, and of course, Marcus Colston and Drew Brees, the legend. So it's like I know when he went to those other teams, he didn't get that same love that he got when he was with the Saints, and he knows he been away for all this time. He gonna come back, and he's still gonna get that same love, even though he's not gonna really do much. He's still gonna get that same love from us because of the things that he did while he was with us.
Yes, because my baby sister used to call him Jimmy Graham Ham. For those who, so for those who know, it's a joke, but yes, she used to call him Jimmy Graham Ham. But Coach, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, like Raymond was pointing out earlier, when he was talking about Cam Jordan. And there's certain players that you want to see get a ring. I remember when the Saints won the Super Bowl, and even though, from a personal standpoint in my personal life, I had, it was like a bad time for me, but, watching the Saints win the Super Bowl, it kind of just brought so much joy, and it just kind of made me think, hey, I wish Senior was here to see this. But, it brought me so much joy from a personal standpoint, even though I was going through a lot of personal things. And, one player that, at the time really deserved the ring because he played the previous year, for years, and he played during the course of that season with the Saints was Mike McKenzie. And, Mike McKenzie was a dog at cornerback, when he was with the Packers, but definitely as a Saint. And even though at one point the Saints were depleted at cornerback, like they brought him off the streets. He got up off his couch and he came back and he had an outstanding performance on Monday Night Football against Randy Moss, who was a nemesis of his over the years. And that same way, we talked about, Mike McKenzie at that time, and he brought up Mark Ingram, who, if the Saints won the Super Bowl this year, even though he's not with the Saints, I think he would deserve a Super Bowl also. I feel that same way about Jimmy Graham. And like Raymond was saying, Jimmy Graham was so beloved, you know what I'm saying, as a Saint. I mean, he was an outstanding tight end. He was, we kind of all knew he was going to be the heir apparent to Jeremy Shockey, and he was that guy. And it's just crazy how he was so dominant as a Saint, because at the time it was like, hey, who's the better tight end? Rob Gronkowski or Jimmy Graham? And it was kind of like 1A and 1B. It was more so Gronkowski was better, but in terms of just a receiving tight end, I think Jimmy Graham had him beat. But Gronkowski was more well-rounded. And it's crazy how the Saints, from a salary cap standpoint, they paid him. He wanted the bag. He got his money. But their salary cap situation was so messed up that they ended up trading him to the Seattle Seahawks for Max Unger, which ended up being a very good center for the Saints. And in addition, they got a first-round pick. And, when he went to the Seahawks, they were like, hey, he was the missing piece, and we just not going to have him to be a blocker. And the crazy thing about it is they got him, and they turned him into a blocker. It's like he's not known for being a blocker. He's essentially a tight end that you could split out and flex out wide like a wide receiver. And essentially, he was a 6'6", 6'7" wide receiver at the tight end position. You couldn't put cornerbacks on him because he was too tall for them. You couldn't put linebackers and strong safeties on him because he was too fast for them. And, you might have a rare guy from an athletic standpoint, like maybe like a Bruce Irvin type guy that you could put on him and he would be able to match up with Jimmy Graham. But outside of like rare, like phenom type athletes like a Bruce Irvin, you couldn't put anybody on Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham was a freak of nature. Even often when they double teamed him, Breeze would just throw that back shoulder fade and they couldn't stop him, So, like Graham was saying, hopefully we could see that guy, but I'm going to be truthful. I'm going to call a spade a spade. That version of Jimmy Graham is no longer with us. That version of Jimmy Graham has left the building. And, it just kind of pained me to see, once he left Seattle and he ended up making all these random stops with the Bears and with the Packers and you see him play, you're like, wow, he's just a shell of his former self. Because I remember, I know David Jackson, my brother David Jackson, and my brother Jared 11 Green, they can relate to this. As a boxing fan, they talk about how some fighters, they gradually roll down a hill and other fighters just kind of fall off the side of a cliff. And I remember Roy Jones Jr. was like one of those guys. Like you saw him like one fight and he was like considered to be like the greatest fighter in the world. And like maybe like 5 fights later, like he get knocked out by guys that would have been like his sparring partner. So he didn't roll down the hill. He fell off the side of a cliff.
Now, Coach, that's not what you're going to do. You're not going to talk about Roy. I used to love me some Roy. That's what you're not going to do is talk about Roy.
But I'm being truthful. And the same thing happened with Jimmy Graham. I remember seeing Jimmy Graham as a Saint. And then years later, I saw him with the Bears and with the Packers. Because I remember at one point, I don't know if people remember, when Jack Rabbit got punched in when C.J. Gardner-Johnson got punched in the face playing against the Bears. And Jack Rabbit had to dive in to save him. Well, in that same game, Jimmy Graham played against the Saints, and he was the tight end for the Bears. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I don't think the Saints have anything to worry about. because I think he's not that guy. I mean, they didn't put Jack Rabbit on him. They didn't put Lattimore on him. In fact, I don't even think they put C.J. Gardner-Johnson on him. So he had the competitive advantage in it, which would have been his prime. When he was in his prime, the person they had on him, he would have carved that person up. But that version of him, he just was out there. I mean, they were knocking out his passes that he was targeted for. He couldn't get off the jam at times. And, like Randall was saying, hopefully we get the 2011 version of him, but I doubt it. That guy's left the building. And more than anything, I'm going to be honest, it's feasible that he could even get cut. Initially when I saw it, I thought he just was coming back to the Saints and sign a one-day contract so he could retire as a Saint. But like Randall was saying, he was beloved as a Saint, as a Saints fan. He was one of the guys that was near and dear to my heart. Like Kay said, my baby used to call him Jimmy Graham. I used to love that, Jimmy Graham. He was that guy. But more than anything, at best, all he could be is a mentor to Jawan Johnson in particular and Foster Morrow. And if he's on the team, that's going to be the role he's going to fill. But, I mean, it's possible and feasible that they even just cut him. So hopefully he makes the team. Hopefully he can contribute in some type of way. But, I mean, it's plausible that he could not even be on the team, once they get down to their final cuts.
Well, and, guys, this is my thought. I'm thinking maybe these other teams didn't really know how to utilize Jimmy Graham. Because there are a lot of times people don't know how to utilize an individual with the skills that they bring to the table. No.
You can say that when he was in Seattle. Seattle used him. They didn't use him in the best way they could have possibly used him. Instead of him splitting him out wide and using him as a target for Russell Wilson, they put him in a box and they made him a blocking tight end like they did all of their tight ends at the time, which was stupid. You paying him this amount of money. You gave up a Pro Bowl caliber center and a first-round draft pick, and you use him in a role that didn't. I mean, basically, that's like me as a coach. I got a player that's on my team. I got an offensive lineman. Instead of me putting him on the offensive line and having him block, I put him at quarterback so he could throw the ball. Or I put him at running back and let him run the ball. Or I'll put him as a defensive back and have him go out here and cover these wide receivers. From a coaching standpoint, I would be stupid if I did that. And I hate to say it, Pete Carroll and his coaching staff, they were stupid for using him in the capacity they did because that wasn't the best. And people said this going, when they traded him, it was like, I hope they use him to the best of his abilities, and they didn't. Now, that version of Jimmy Graham, we can say that. They didn't use him in the best role he could have been used in. But when he was with the Bears and he was with the Packers, they tried to use him the same way Sean Payton and Drew Brees used him as a Saint. But he just wasn't that guy anymore. And, I mean, it was sad. It's sad reality. Like I said, it was just kind of like, watching Roy Jones Jr. fight against Glenn Johnson, watching Jimmy Graham play against the Saints. First of all, it was heartbreaking just watching him play against the Saints. But watching him not even be able to get off a jam, and him with his huge frame, his long arm, stick his arms out to try to catch a pass, the defensive back just knock a pass away from him. I'm like, wow, he's not that guy anymore,
So maybe, and I'm just trying to be very, very optimistic. And maybe he needs someone like the same trainer that
Okay. Being optimistic with that. It is what it is. And it's gonna be what it's gonna be. And we gonna see what it's gonna be.
Yes, we're gonna see. Yes, we're gonna see.
Jawan Johnson is our starting tight end. Foster Morrow, is our second tight end. Jimmy Graham might not even get the PT for us to even see if he's still that type of player.
Yeah.
So trust me.
Well, you never know. You don't know who's gonna be hurt.
I look. That's the only way. But I really hope nobody gets hurt.
No, I hope not either, because I would love for us to have a healthy season and as well as a Super Bowl ring as well to end the season. That would be a great wrap up. And with that being said, guys, let's talk about, as Coach said, let's talk about this this wannabe thug on the Saints team, and you guys know who I'm talking about. And so, Coach, you start us off. Let's talk about this wannabe thug who really is not a thug.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna call him a wannabe thug. I mean, he had an isolated incident. Uh,
No.
at the baby, it's not like he had multiple incidents. I mean, nah, don't get it twisted. There are guys in the NFL.
Y'all talking about Camaro?
Yeah, that's what she's
Yes,
talking about.
sir.
Oh man, I'm sitting here. I'm like, who is she?
No, that's what I'm
Like,
saying.
bro,
Grandma,
the first
grandma.
called him a thug threw me off. Alvin Kamara ain't no thug.
No, that's what I'm
He
saying.
wants to be. He is
Hey,
trying.
no, he does not want to be. He had an isolated incident where he had a lapse in judgment. And I mean, from a character standpoint, he's not shown that he's that guy. I mean, there are a lot of guys in the NFL who's had incident after incident after incident after incident. Some of those incidents might have been swept under the rug, but these guys are habitual, like, troublemakers. He hasn't shown to be that. I mean, don't get me wrong. What he did was extremely wrong. I'm not justifying nor rationalizing what he did, but he doesn't have a perpetual pattern of being what you saying he was. No,
And
he's
I'm
not
not
a wannabe
saying he
thug.
does have a habitual pattern. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying as in he's trying to play out a role that's not
No,
in
John
him.
No.
Morant is a wannabe thug.
Oh
That's
no, that's a whole nother
John Morant.
cow.
John
Raymond, Raymond is 100% accurate. That's a wannabe thug.
Right. Alvin Kamara that's like Ray Rice. I wouldn't call Ray Rice a wannabe thug. He beat his wife in the elevator, but
Yeah,
you
he
might
knocked
call
the
him a
goal.
thug, but I wouldn't call him a thug. Alvin Kamara and the other player from the Colts who also was with him, they got into it. Guys get into it all the time. Two guys could be playing basketball. You know how guys get, our testosterone level go up. We get real aggressive and dudes start throwing hands. You wouldn't call them thugs. It's just, it got out of hand. I forgot what the situation was, but Alvin Kamara threw a punch and it kind of stomped the dude out. I don't know. The guy probably was drunk, aggravating, called him an N-word or whatever. You know what I'm saying, like that. But I would not call Alvin Kamara a thug. Please do not do. You would be better off. Well, I know he's not.
No, and that's
You'd
the
be
point
better
I'm
off
making.
calling
He is
CJ
not
Gardner
that.
Johnson, huh?
That's the point I'm making. He's not that, Ray.
Oh, I don't know. At first it sounded like you were trying to call AK a thug.
Yeah, I ain't gonna
No,
lie. Raymond, she kind of threw me off with that one also. I'm like, nah, that's not him. But the fact that he only got away with 3 games, I'm not gonna lie. As a Saints fan, I feel like we won on that one. So I can't be mad. Hopefully that was his only lapse in judgment. He doesn't have any other issues, along those lines. But I feel like he got off with I ain't gonna say a slap on the wrist, because that's 3 game checks. But yeah, he made out easy. And the fact that you brought up the Ray Rice analogy, I know Jerry gonna have something to say about that in the chats, But yeah, the you Ram.
Yeah, for me, like when I was watching ESPN this morning, and I was like, oh, because I think we all was kind of assuming that Alvin Kamara would get like 6 games.
I was thinking 8.
Yeah, like, and then we didn't know when it was going to occur in the season. We didn't know if it was going to be in the middle of the season, end of the season. But it's the first 3 games, and they say the Saints are high. Not I won't say high favorites, but they're favorites for the first 2 games, and they're a minor underdog in the third game against the Packers. Which I feel like I'm pretty sure that game got to be a way for us not to be a favorite. But I'm like, look, dog, we're going against Jordan Love. We should pretty much win that game. It's the NFL, it's football, so you can't underestimate anyone, but. Those first 3 games, I ain't tripping about us not having Alvin Kamara. We got Jamal Williams and we got the rook from TCU. Let them get their grind and they shine on. The Alvin Kamara come in the mix and pick it back up and let's get this offense rolling. The Saints going marching in.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Well, I know this is just something quick I want to ask you guys before we move on to something.
Oh, if you ask me about my Saints prediction, the Saints gonna win the NFC South, and the Saints gonna make a push to try to win the Super Bowl.
Okay, what are your thoughts, Ray?
Same thing.
Okay, and really quick, do you think if Jimmy Graham makes the cut, will he make
No comment.
okay, listen, let me finish. Do you think he's gonna wear number 80 once again?
Yeah, he already
Oh,
got
oh,
it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
He
mean,
did.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. Like, when certain guys come back to the team, well, because the NFL had the stupid new rule. Uh, if a guy's already wearing that number, you can't get that number back. Because I don't know if people remember when Mark Ingram came back to the Saints. Which player had his number, Raymond? If you remember,
Mark Ingram came back to the Saints. Was it
somebody
CJ Gardner
he can't
Johnson?
not last year before last. He came back and somebody was wearing his number, so he had to get another number. And I'm like, bro, that is not Mark Ingram playing with the Saints. That's somebody else because that's not Mark Ingram's number.
Did he wear 22 or 28? Because the
He
first
go
number he had was 28. Then he changed it to 22.
he was wearing 22. So I think somebody
CJ,
had his number.
because then CJ, no.
Okay,
No,
so in 2011, Mark Ingram was wearing number 28.
yeah, but
Oh, I'm
he
sorry. It said the number 28 overall pick. He was the pick number 28. So yeah.
But he
Uh
did wear 28 though.
oh, that was the number he wore?
Yeah, he probably was the first round pick because the Saints.
no,
The,
I think that's the reason why he wore that number because maybe that's where he was drafted and he kind of wanted to remind him or whatever. I don't know, but I think he did wear 22. And I know when he came back, somebody had his number. And he got it back at the beginning of last season because the season before that, he came midway through the season. The season had already started. The player offered him the number back, but the NFL was like, nah, that person already has that number, so he can't switch it. And I'm like, what?
Yes, yes. So he wore number 28 and then he changed it to number 22. So yes, that is correct. Because he
But
was number 28.
but Raymond, I know but Kay has a special connection with Jimmy Graham. She really likes him, so she wants him to kind of turn back the hands of time and be the guy that he once was, even though that might not be feasible. But I think he, like Rambler said, he has his old number back. Hopefully, he could turn back the hands of time. But I'm not gonna hold my breath,
okay.
And more than anything, hopefully the Saints do handle their business. They win a division. They make a Super Bowl run. Hopefully, they can win the Super Bowl, and we could get a swag championship from Southern and a black national championship. We get a national championship from LSU, and we get a NFL championship from the Saints. I mean,
The whole
it'll
state
be
knows that.
yeah,
And maybe we'll have a
and let's
great
not forget,
parade like last time.
yeah, and let's not forget the Pelicans winning the NBA championship too.
And
You
Zion
get,
was staying healthy
I
and not
mean, if
expecting anything from them women he's sleeping with.
I know it's extremely optimistic, but if we get all four of those things to happen, hey man, life would be great.
Well, and that will be a great day in Louisiana to
Yeah,
have a
he did
big
wear
old
14.
party.
Shout out to Jerry. Yeah, he did wear 14. I remember Mark Ingram
Yeah,
wearing.
that was the number he was wearing, and the NFL said, "Oh no, even though he offered to give him the 22 back, he couldn't get it right away." I'm like,
That
man,
had to be CJ. That had to be CJ. Cause
yeah, that was CJ. But
yeah,
no, but CJ offered to give it back to him, but the NFL had this stupid rule. He was already penciled in his 22, so he couldn't
right.
give it back
Because
to him.
that happened. That happened in the middle of the season.
Middle of the season, yeah.
I remember that.
Okay, so guys, let me ask you this, and
Yeah.
I know this has nothing to do with the New Orleans Saints or any hometown team, but guys, what's going on with Russell Wilson? And I know they have. This is why I brought it up because they have our former coach, Sean Payton. So do you think maybe Russell Wilson has lost his je ne sais quoi, or maybe he shouldn't have left? His team that where things were going so well for him
In
because
Seattle.
yes. So do you think it's just he just don't have that swag or he's just trying to find his footing? Ray, can you tell me what do you think?
Bad team, bad environment, bad coach. Sean Payton gonna fix all that. I just ain't like the recent comments that Sean Payton made criticizing their old head coach and stuff like that, and just kind of putting them on blast. Like you don't do that, bro. You keep it professional. But I feel like that's the reason why Russell Wilson played horribly last year. Um, Offensive line, team, play calling, coaches, all of the above. Of course, he got to take some of the blame, but like Sean Payton was saying, it's not all Russell Wilson. So I'm expecting Sean Payton to clean a lot of that up. Um, I'm not expecting for them to be like this all-star amazing team because I don't think they even have that type of team. But I feel like you should definitely see the old Russell Wilson and a better version of him compared to last year.
Okay, Coach, what are your thoughts?
And I know my brother Jared 11 Green could attest to this. In the LDBC, we talked about earlier how a lot of brothers and sisters in the LDBC have been talking about how uh, Anthony Joshua and Ryan Garcia, those two fighters, because of their loser mentality, they kind of been bringing a lot of negative energy and bad vibes, to Charlo and Spence. That's part of the reason why like they haven't had the same success lately that they've had in the past. Even though it's more to it than that in terms of not them not getting the individualized attention that they once got, so on and so forth. But many individuals are speculating that they think that Sierra is a negative influence on Russell Wilson. Uh, she's kind of brought a lot of negative energy to him. With the issues between them and Future and the fact that she's one of Future's baby mamas, and the whole fiasco with it. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what's going on in their personal life. I'm not saying he's not happy or anything like that, but a lot of people felt like, hey, the fact that he had the worst season in his career, and I mean I know the Broncos gave up a lot to get him, but even with that being said, he just wasn't that guy. I don't think it just was the team. I mean, I think he got the big head going to Denver. I mean, I was unaware of this, but I saw something where they were saying that, he had like multiple parking spots that was allocated just for him. They only him and like members of his entourage was able to park in, and he had his own personal space, like his own personal office and in the team facility. Like he didn't just have a locker like all the rest of the players, but like he had his own like not all, yeah like his own office or whatever the case may be. So they were saying that a lot of those things that he was doing was real out of character for him. Like she was part of him getting a big head and him being arrogant. So hopefully he could kind of get back to what he was. But from what I'm understanding that like he just hadn't been looking the same since he left Seattle. So hopefully he get back to being that guy. I really don't follow Broncos. I don't follow training camp because I think training camp is overrated and preseason is overrated for me personally. But even with that being said, just from what I had been hearing, like I hadn't followed it a lot, but they say he still kind of hadn't been what he was in Seattle. So I mean, I don't know. Hopefully, he get back to being that guy.
Not Sierra being Jezebel and Russell Wilson being her out.
Hey, that's what they've been saying. Like she got a Jezebel spirit, and she kind of been a negative influence on him, and he's kind of gotten a big head. He's become arrogant, and he's kind of trickled down to his play.
Well, from what I see, he has a good spirit, and I think that will carry him through because he is, he looks like he brings good vibes, and that's one thing that keeps me rooting for him. And you want someone that can expose a team for their goodness, not just for and their camaraderie. As so they can bring this wholeness, so I'm rooting for him. So with that being said, guys, thank you for a great show today. Are there anything's that you may want to add to wrap it up? Let's start with you, Coach.
Let's start with Raymond.
Ray, go ahead.
I don't have nothing to add. I'm just gonna say my closing remarks. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you for everybody who watched. Hope y'all enjoy, everything that we discussed. We had a great show today. Appreciate it. Y'all subscribe to me on YouTube at just Ray Swank. Instagram underscore Ray. Oh no, underscore King Ray with two Y's followed by another underscore. And yeah, just thank y'all for watching. Continue to watch, like, comment, and subscribe.
Coach.
All right, like I'm gonna echo the same sentiments that Raymond touched upon. We appreciate everybody that's kind of been rocking with us since day one. Everybody in the chat, my brother David Jackson, Brandon Pasil, my brother Jerry 11 Green. Tomorrow we're gonna be on Southern Baller Show on his channel. So everybody that's locked in with us, come over to his channel tomorrow. Probably at about put the time in the chat, bro. Probably about 7 o'clock, 7:30, somewhere in that time frame. Tomorrow, y'all come over to his channel. Check out Southern Baller Show. We're gonna talk about some swag talk, some HBCU talk. Maybe his Ravens in terms of the training camp, the Saints, whatever he touch on. So y'all come over there and support him too. Support the brother Brandon Brazil also. But we appreciate everybody that been rocking with us since day one. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. And we looking forward to catching y'all again next week. Y'all have a blessed, phenomenal evening, a blessed, phenomenal weekend, and a blessed, phenomenal work week. And we'll catch y'all again next weekend.
Okay, guys. Well, with that being said, we want to thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, follow, and share for more content. And if there is something that you did not hear or see that you would like us to talk about, please put it in the comment section below. And our closing quote for today: hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Guys, have a great day. Thank you for watching. Bye bye. We love you.